and welcome to Two Gray Goatees and a Whistle. I'm joined by a very special guest, Brad Ledwith. He is coming from California to have a conversation with me for people up here in Idaho. So I appreciate having Brad out here with me. We had Amy reach out to me and shared a YouTube of a film that was coming out. And I was like, okay, let's check this out. This is something new. Checked it out and I saw the preview and I was like, this is really cool. So I got back to Amy and I was just like, dude, this is awesome. Let's do this. And so we've been playing kind of like email tag. So I'd like to welcome Brad to the show. Hello, Brad.
Hello, Chad and listeners. I'm so excited to be here /Idaho.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. It's great to have you on. So why do I have you on here? Well, we're going to talk about lacrosse. And if you can't tell, Brad's wearing his lacrosse hat there. Lacrosse, for me, I've seen it. Looks really cool. Something I wish we would have had, but obviously it's not very popular, at least up here. So there's something very unique about this. So Brad's going to kind of talk about how he was able to kickstart a lacrosse program in his community. So first thing I want to talk about, Brad, a lot of times I want to talk about talk about your film and everything.
Yeah.
I want to start with a little bit of background from you. Okay.
Sure.
So first of all, getting started in sports for you, when did you first start playing sports for you? When did you start getting into sports?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in Southern California, San Diego, and I played everything. I played baseball, basketball, football, flag football. It was, my dad put me in lots of different sports. And so I was the bigger kid. And I remember playing baseball, and it was always like, how come these kids can't catch? And how come they can't hit? Well, I didn't realize that I was a little more advanced in my athletic ability at 6 years old. I remember walking down, and soccer was very new at that time in San Diego, and especially in the States. And I'm like, what are they playing? I went over there and started juggling the ball and kicking it around. I came home and told my dad, I want to play that sport. So he got me into that one. And so it was just a kind of one of those things where after school, I'd go to the boys club. We'd play wiffle ball. We'd play ping pong. We'd play every sport available. And that's really where it came from, is just this undying passion to compete. Whether it's ping pong or basketball or 3-on-3 or flag football, it was about competing. And it started at a young age. So, and as you mentioned, it's crazy to think that I've got to the point of now I have this crazy thing called lacrosse and talking about this movie, The Mighty Oaks. But it's very important to remember that I knew nothing about lacrosse before my kids started in the program. So I know that this conversation can go lots of different ways, but I want you to know that I didn't know anything. And it's fun to think about 7 years ago, to be able to think that I'm here talking about a documentary that I'm the executive producer on.
And that's great. And it's funny because not too long ago, a buddy of mine who does the show with me, Coach Gonzo, he went to a different school down the road from me, and he ended up being the math teacher it's a really tiny school / PE teacher. And then they're like, oh, you have coaching experience. Why don't you go do soccer?
Yes.
And he's never done soccer in his entire life. He's coached softball. He's coached baseball, football. He's coached basketball. He's done all of that. And he was like, what? So here he is. He gets thrown into something like this. So something very similar where it's like, you don't know nothing about the game, but
Nothing.
I can say, just as in coaching in general, and just for me, for watching the show, and we'll get into this a little bit later, listen to Coach Her. I'm just like, when Coach Her was talking, I was like, yeah, I've said that before. Yep, I've done that. Yep, I've had those same conversations. And I'm just going, yeah, and I've never coached lacrosse, but I've coached football, I've coached basketball and softball, all this stuff. And so I'm like, yep. So what's funny is that when we get into this, it's going to be like, I don't think but it doesn't matter what sport is. Coaching can transcend in any sports. And so the same idea goes for anything when it comes to this. So I really appreciate the fact that you come in with that.
Well, and that's the whole thing about it, was like, and the movie kind of tells this whole story that I had kids that I wanted to get involved in sports. So I put them in all these summer camps, 1-day camps, like soccer camp and basketball camp and baseball camp. And I'm like, I played baseball in college. So I was thinking I was going to be, these kids are going to be playing baseball. And my firstborn is Nolan Ryan Ledwith, so I'm a baseball guy through and through. But when they came home from these camps, I would say, hey, how was soccer camp? They're like, oh, it was okay, Dad. How was football camp? Oh, it was okay. I put them in lacrosse camp. They came home. They're like, Dad, that was the most amazing thing I've ever done. And I'm like, that's the passion you want to see in your own kids. And I'm like, okay, well,
Right.
let's see if we can get this started here in Morgan Hill, California, just south of San Jose. And, it's just basically kind of what you just said. I'm like, oh, I can just YouTube how to coach, and I'll just YouTube how to coach lacrosse. And we got 22 kids out there for the very first clinic. And the night before the clinic, my buddy, who's also had a player on the team, he's like, I think my neighbor played professional lacrosse. And I'm like, give me his name, give me his number. So I called him, and he's like, and I asked him to help. And he and all of the lacrosse community has always been one of those communities that truly just wants to give back and grow the game. So he said, yes, I'd come out there. So he's teaching 7-year-olds how to pick up a ball with the stick, how to throw, how to catch, how to run with the ball, which is called cradling. The rest, like I say, is history, but we were so bad for so long. We did 3 years of playing other teams, and we never won a game. And that's part of the whole story, is these mighty oaks that go from this inept team playing and getting crushed in games, and all of a sudden they won, and the tide just turned. And through this whole time, I kept on asking my kids, like, don't you want to win? And and they're like, Dad, we're just having a great time. We're having so much fun. And I think that that's missing a lot in our sports communities, is that we think we have one season of baseball and we need to hop into travel ball right away, or one season of basketball before you know it, you're playing AAU. I think the fun of the game is trying to learn how to get better. The process of throwing, of catching, of dribbling, whatever sport we're talking about, trying to get better so that you can compete at a higher level. That's the process we all want, we love. And that's really what I wanted to see was, are my kids willing to practice? Because I think that if you want to get better at something, you've got to practice, and then you have to want to practice. That's really what it boils down to. I've always told them about the pyramid of talent versus hard work, and that at some point the pyramid is going to get to that spot where either your hard work is going to not happen, or your talent is going to lead you to get to a point where you're not getting better. So you have to choose. So, I'm off on a tangent a little bit, Chad, but I think
No,
the
you're
most
fine.
important part I want you to understand is that I didn't know what I was doing. I threw my hat in the ring, and I was taking videos and putting it on Facebook and trying to tell everybody, you should come out and play lacrosse. I didn't know what I was saying. I didn't know what that meant, and I just wanted to build a program so my kids could have people to play with. And that's really how it all started. And, now we get to the point of high school, and as you know, money is an issue. And whether it be school districts or schools, they don't want to pay to have a new sport in their high school. But we created something in our community that the parents and the teachers and the administrators had to say yes. We had almost 200 kids playing lacrosse from scratch. We had this overwhelming wave of youth playing lacrosse, and I wanted it to be in the high schools, boys and girls. And in order to do that, this is the crazy part about the whole story, is we went to the administration, and the superintendent was all for it. The principal was all for it. The athletic director, he was like, where are we going to get the money? He was still all for it though. But for the most part, it was the language in the teacher's contract. So the union here in Morgan Hill had a language in the teacher's contract that said, no new sport unless you eliminate one. So imagine being an athletic director. You're going to eliminate
Oh
what? Girls
man.
tennis. You're going to,
Yeah.
women's water polo. You're not going to. There's just no chance an athletic director is going to eliminate a sport. It's just going to die. He's not going to. We're going to cancel one. So once we got the language changed in the contract, which everybody wanted, we didn't really know why it was there. Then we were all board ahead, and we had lots of sponsors. We were outfitted with the gear, the helmet, the uniforms, the goals. There were so many different faces that helped get us to that point, and we got it in the high schools. Now, the hard part was I needed a coach.
It's
So
important.
I mean, I could coach 7-year-olds and get away with it, but I could not coach high schoolers, right? So I decided, all right, well, we couldn't get a coach. And 28 days, I was coaching the varsity team, and then COVID hit. And so during that time, I was tweeting. I was saying, hey, can everybody help me on how to coach high schoolers? What should I do? And it was the following. People are like, you got to write a book. Oh, you're unbelievable. Like, all these amazing people reached out to me about what I needed to do. And all I was doing, like, okay, what am I doing tomorrow? What's my practice plan tomorrow? And it was exciting, you know, and then obviously COVID hit, we came back, and I'm like, okay, these kids need a coach. All right, let's see if I can go to Netflix and I'll create a series about a lacrosse team in Northern California. And then the money that we earn from that, we'll pay for a coach. That was my idea, Chad.
Okay. I was thinking outside the box, because I'm just like,
Believe me, it was way outside the box.
Because for me, I'm just like, all right, we'll just put some ads out, we'll send it out to the normal way. And then I'm like, oh, wow, we're going to go as far as using Netflix. That is crazy.
Yeah. So my crazy idea of trying to do that, I found a guy who was interested in our project. And I'm like, okay, what do we need to do? He's like, well, we need to shoot a sizzle reel. So he came up a couple times, shot some game footage, and put together a 7-minute video to try to go out and sell it to all the producers that are out there. And everybody loved it. Everybody. They loved the idea. They loved the opportunities. They loved the high school students, but they didn't want to pay for it. So that was the hard part, is that I finally stepped up 2 years later and said, okay, we need to finish this project. So the movie, The Mighty Oaks, really kind of all those things I just mentioned starts in that season, the championship season of 2024. And we're trying to win a championship with the players that started the program. And it really uncovers the things that you and your listeners see as coaches, which is the backstory of high school athletics, high school sports. And the beauty of it is, in lacrosse, I always tell people, if you've never seen lacrosse or never heard of it, and you mentioned Idaho, I'll tell you some interesting stories about Idaho and lacrosse that you may or may not know, but it's the 5 sports we all love. Okay, it's the contact of football, it's the hand-eye coordination of hockey, it's the accuracy of baseball, it's the fitness of soccer, it's moving without the ball of basketball. All together in one sport. It's North America's oldest sport, so it has some sort of spiritual. The Native Americans, that was their sport, right? They started this whole sport as a way to settle disputes. And it was tribal versus tribe. It was like 3-day games. People died in these games. So one of the things that I try to help people understand is that it's a unique game. And therefore, you need to have a coach that can kind of guide you through that, which, as you saw in the trailer and in the movie, Gavin Hare, coach, we call him a lax bro. He plays, he coaches, he refs, he has his own program, and then he coached our high school team. So, I can't thank Gavin enough for his service to our community, but also to the community of lacrosse. He is so well respected in our Northern California area, and to have him kind of be the star of the movie along with the kids is really a fun.
Yeah. And so we'll get started more on this. So the challenges you were talking about, how you have teachers on board, you have your superintendent on board, you got your principal, you got that, and which is great. And how you built the program from scratch is insane, because it's not like, it's because to me, when I think about it, okay, for us around here, I moved to Idaho in 2013. I got here and my daughter played softball where we were at, but she was like 5th grade. So I was like, I come here, this should be, the school we were at was a smaller school, but a big enough school that should have a softball program. I'm like, okay, she'll be able to play softball. And it's like, that seems like it's a common thing, baseball, softball.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, all right, I get here, no baseball program. And then they just started the softball program like the year before that. And I was just like, what? And they were the only 3A school in the state of Idaho that didn't have a softball program at the time. And then they never had a baseball team. And they got a baseball team about 4 or 5 years after I moved here. They finally got a baseball team. And so for me, for that, getting that started and seeing what they had to do, because that costs money. I mean, because baseball's expensive. Football's expensive. I mean, a lot of these sports are very expensive. I can see lacrosse being expensive because you got to buy the gear, the nets, and all that. So, I mean, all that costs money. So I get the whole gathering the money, being able to get the equipment and
Mhm.
stuff like that. And then the process of, okay, now we got to build a schedule, all this stuff.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
so when you're looking at lacrosse, because I
Don't
actually
forget
talked to
referees.
referees, yeah. Then you got to have a place to play, all
Oh, and
this
a
other stuff that comes,
scorekeeper, and yeah, exactly.
scorekeeper,
Field
yeah,
time, exactly.
field,
All of those
all
things.
this stuff builds up, and then so then your athletic director's like, holy crap, and then God bless our
Yes,
athletic directors because they are
yes.
truly
Mike
underappreciated.
Gimo has been our athletic director for at least 15 years, I think, at Live Oak, and I can't thank him enough. I was on speed dial with him until he stopped answering my questions because I was just asking everything I could, and I have to give a lot of credit to the athletic directors that are out there because it's so
Yeah,
easy to say no.
right.
It makes they know that adding a sport is going to add so much work to what they're already doing, and I have to thank them for sure.
Yeah. So lacrosse in Idaho, and we can talk about this. So for me, lacrosse, me noticing in Idaho was actually a softball game I was going to for my daughter over in
Mm-hmm.
a town for us that's just out not too far. So where I live is about an hour 15 minutes from Boise, and we're in about a 30-minute drive from Twin Falls. The town outside Ida Twin Falls called Kimberly. We go there to play, and I walk by and we're going to the field, and I see these kids out there playing lacrosse, and I go, that's cool. They got lacrosse over here. And I'm just like, that's really neat. So I was like, all right. And it's not a sanctioned in Idaho yet. We have nothing for lacrosse, but I know that there are some clubs pockets around the area. And
Yes.
so a couple kids that I teach when I was back at school, and I coached middle school, and I go out one day, and we have to rotate and go outside during lunch, kind of recess this type of thing for the middle schoolers. They
Yeah.
have time to go outside. Going out there, and I'm seeing two kids with lacrosse sticks throwing the ball around. I'm like, "You're doing lacrosse?" And he goes, "Yeah, there's a club over in Kimberly. We go do that." I'm like, "Well, that's really cool." And
Yeah.
so it's this was
And
when
I'm and
I saw this was about 8 years ago. So I
yeah,
mean,
and Chad, it's interesting because we have one of my friends, Stuart. Gosh, I only know him as Stu. I can't remember his last name right now, but he's just outside of Boise. As you know, the California folks have moved all over to Idaho, and
oh
he was
yeah,
part of that migration over
that
there.
migration.
But
Yep.
he took what we were doing, and he's doing it in outside of Boise in his neighborhood. So
That's awesome.
that's one of the things that, and his kid is probably maybe 12 or 13 right now, might be a little bit, maybe
Hmm.
14, something like that, but his last name's going to come to me. But at the same time, what's interesting is Northwest Nazarene University. You familiar with them?
Yep. Yep. Oh yeah.
Okay, they just went from NAIA to Division 2, so they're going to compete in the
Okay.
Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference, and
Okay.
that is a huge deal for Idaho. That's the first NCAA program to adopt lacrosse in the state of Idaho. So if
Okay.
you want
Are they
to
doing
play
both guys
NCAA,
and girls, or is it
I don't know
so?
about
Is
the
are they gonna
girls.
do
I think
guys
there
and
might be
girls?
some other teams, but this is just guys. They're going to be in the same
Okay.
conference as Dominican, Colorado College, as well as Westminster and Salt Lake City, Concordia Irvine, and they're going to be able to compete for a national championship. And one of our Mighty Oaks, who's got a star in the movie, literally just got a scholarship to go there and is committed to be on one of their teams next year.
Hey,
So
that's awesome.
really
So he's
excited.
he's
Yeah.
setting up the Idaho. Hey, have him.
Yeah.
After the show, we can talk. He can get a hold of me. We're not too far out. I'm not too far. Like I said, I'm not too far from
Yeah.
there. And yeah, if he needs anything, we'll work this out after the show. So
Yeah.
that's
So
amazing. So
and it's exciting because, it's, as we grew this program, one of the things we realized is that, okay, are they going to be able to play at the next level? And it's amazing to think that all of these kids, 22 of them that started, 12 of them are playing at the next level, some sport.
mhm.
And, and that's the part that I'm so proud of, is that they took it upon themselves to continue to play even after their high school experience.
So I do want to go back a little bit and talk about the start
Sure.
of this, and it's
Yeah.
so when you started out, I loved what you did with your kids. You're like, oh, let's go figure out what you
Yeah.
enjoy doing. You obviously love sports. I'm the
Yeah.
same way, and so being able to give your kids those opportunities to go try stuff at that young
Yeah.
age, because there's go find something that you're
That's right.
passionate about. And I, we did the same thing with our daughter. We could, that wasn't just sports; it was music and all this other stuff.
Yeah, music,
Make
exactly.
him make him well rounded in whatever they want to do. And so when that happens, so when that happens, and then your boys come back and they're like, yeah, okay, yeah, it was fun, yeah, it was fun, and then they come back and they're just like eating up lacrosse, and
Yeah.
they're just like, dude, this is like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
And them able to keep that, the key to that is the fun. And
Yeah.
like you talked about earlier, and when you guys talk about this in the movie, you guys talk about you guys are getting your butts kicked,
Yes.
but and you're talking about like you scored one goal and that was it for you guys were just getting stomped, but at the
Yes.
same time, your kids are still having fun.
Yeah.
And like you said, that's something that gets lost, especially
Yeah.
with younger with a lot of travel
Yeah.
ball and stuff like that. We hear that, and I've talked about this. Of There's a lot of other people out there that are talking about this, about how the fun's getting sucked out. I
Yes.
appreciate the fact that you guys over there, is for you as a parent, are like, oh, you're having fun. Great. And you built on that. You weren't looking at the wins and losses, because to me at that age, it doesn't matter.
It
It's
really
not
doesn't
that
matter.
important.
It
No,
doesn't.
are they having fun? Are the kids having? It's like
It's it.
this summer, me and my daughter coached a rec softball team. My daughter was the head coach, and she's like, "Hey, Dad, you want to come coach?" I'm like, "Sure." So we went and
Yeah.
did that, and then, we were trying to tell the kids, we're having fun, and when we weren't winning a lot right at that
Yeah.
time, because a lot of times because here the travel ball kind of takes a lot of the more talented
Yeah.
kids,
Of
but
course.
for us, we're like, we're here to develop, we're here to have fun.
Yeah.
And so that was a constant thing. And by the end of the year, things started turning around. We started winning, we're getting better. And that's what I tried to express to the kids. So the same thing for you guys was to
Yeah.
have fun. And watching your sons on the show, like watching Nolan and Brad,
Yeah.
or Nolan, and I was just
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm like, he still had a lot of passion and a lot of love for the game. And I was like, dude, I love this kid, dude. This is awesome. And then
Yeah.
and seeing some of the other kids on the show
Yeah.
in the movie and watching them. And I don't know, the one kid you had, I think he's the one that ended up going to San Jose to play football.
Yeah. Luke Ritchie. Yep.
Yeah, because he was towered over
He
everybody.
is the biggest, strongest kid on the field every time we played.
And I was looking at that kid going, holy crap, dude, that kid's a freaking like a
Yes,
tank.
he
That's
was.
just,
Yeah, he ran a 4.640.
wow.
Left-handed in lacrosse is a big advantage.
Okay.
So he had all the talent, and he decided to want to play football. He was our all MVP of our football team, and he got an opportunity to play at San Jose State. And I still think that he could play. Like, if he picks up a stick and spends, a couple weeks getting back into it, I know he could play somewhere. And my boys
Right.
also say that he could play just about anywhere he wants. Um, it's funny you say that about Nolan, because the feedback I'm getting from the Mighty Oaks movie after people watch it is they don't really know what they're getting into, and then it kind of grabs them, and the characters grab them. And I say the characters, Ben and Nolan. Nolan is intense. Ben's a nice kid. You've got
Yeah.
you've got Kenyon, who works really, really hard and
Kenyon.
is trying his
Yeah.
best to overcome some obstacles in his family life. Then you have Tanner, who basically is carrying his brother's memories with him. And you have all of the makings that every school, every program, every town deals with. And that's why I love this movie, for people to see it, because it's the same thing that you're going to have to experience in the towns you were talking about in Idaho. And whether it's Morgan Hill,
Yep.
California, you know, uh, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, it's not going to matter. You're going to have the same obstacles. You're going to have the same challenges. You're going to have the same, failures. But for the most part, it always is about the kids. What are we giving back to the kids? And I'll tell
Yes.
you one other thing, Chad, and I've been thinking about this a lot. I told you I grew up playing baseball. And if you think about this, most people have played baseball in America. You played for Little League, you played for Pony League, you kind of went through the process. Some people were better than others, but the parents that are coaching seem to think that they know things. The parents on the sideline seem to tell their kids what to do and where to be and all that kind of stuff. In lacrosse, nobody knows what the hell they're doing. So we're not yelling at the kids. We're not yelling at the kids where they should be, what they're doing. And I think it gives kids freedom to have that fun, to feel free to make mistakes, to go out and drop a ball or make a mistake and throw the ball to the other team or throw it to the person that's not there or not catch it or miss the goal. All of those failures that sports teaches us. They're in a safe environment in this sport, especially in California. Now we go to Maryland, you go to Long Island, you go to Pennsylvania outside of Philly. You got a lot more
Right.
people that have played the game.
Yeah,
But if we're
back
talking
east,
with a
so
person,
back east is big.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So what I guess I'm saying, though, is like you said, I put them in everything. If they wanted to do fencing, we would have done fencing. You know, if they wanted to do crew, I just wanted them to be able to know that I wanted them to be able to practice.
Yeah. And yeah, and going back to the how it relates, you know, because once I found out I was going to have you, because I was waiting, okay, I want to make sure I got him, and I'm like, all right, I got to go see the movie because I want to act like I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So I watched the movie last night, and I was I'm like I was telling you earlier, I'm listening to Coach her, and I was just going, yep, done that, done that, done that. And one of the things that really got me was, I want to say it might have been the first round of the playoffs, and the kids were chirping.
Yes.
I don't know what you guys call it, because whatever penalty,
It's chirping.
whatever,
Yeah, it's chirping. It's teenagers
when they're
being
chirping
bravado. Yes, chirping.
Is teenager, yeah, bravado steps in there, and it when you, especially, in that sport, similar to hockey, when you get penalized, you get pulled off the field, and now you're a man down.
That's
or
right.
2 mans down.
That's
And
right.
so
That's right.
So and so I was watching that. I'm like, okay, because when I coach, there's 2 things. There are penalties and stuff that happen that just happen, or offsides, or
Sure.
you have a turnover,
Yeah.
things that naturally happen in the game. That's fine. But then you have the things that you can control, and
Right.
the chirping that happens.
Yeah.
It's like, that's one of those things you can't control. And so I was feeling the coach's frustration, because it's like, he knows what they were doing was wrong. And I've always told the kids this, the coach or the referees, because I've ref basketball and stuff. The referees do not care what your opinion is. So it's like, I've always told the kids, it's like, you're respectful to them. You can ask a question, especially if you're the captain. If you're the captain, you're the only one talking to them.
Sure.
Other than that, don't say anything. Like, say something to me. I will say something, talk to them about it. So when that happened, and then they won, not being a spoiler, I hope they won. So
I love the scene in the movie I know you're talking about, where he's getting prepared for the next game, and they're showing film from the previous game, and he's like, do not talk to the officials. And you can feel him like trying to talk to these teenagers, like,
it was on the
I want
whiteboard
to shoot
too.
you. I want you to listen to me. Do not talk to the officials.
And it's on the whiteboard. So when they're having their team meeting, it's on the whiteboard. That's their number one goal. Do not talk to the refs. Yeah, and I was just like, yes, that is something that coaches deal with.
And think about it, Chad. There's not a movie out there that I know of that uncovers what we're talking about, which are these high school moments where you're trying to teach respect, you're trying to teach how to behave, but at the same time, have you ever been hit with a stick? No, I haven't either.
Nope, no.
I don't know how I would react, but I can tell you that self-control is part of life, right?
Right, absolutely. It doesn't matter. You work with coworkers, you're going, or
that's right.
Man, I would like just to, and then, so you got to have self-control. So teaching those kids that, and that's the perfect environment to do that in. Okay.
Yes.
Because there's consequences. Okay.
Lots
you
of
gotta come sit out. And then hopefully, the other team doesn't take advantage of that. And then, next thing you know, you're looking at yourself like, wow, I'm out of the game. And
one, a little tidbit you didn't really know, I'll give you in the movie. In that movie in that game that you're talking about, in that first round of the playoffs, we have a rule in California that if you have too many penalty minutes, you get an ejection, so to speak, and you can't play the next game. So as you could see, Nolan was one of our best players. and he
Right.
had racked up like 5 or 6 penalty minutes, and I kind of shared with him, "Hey, you can't get any more penalties or you're not going to play the next game." Well, he ended up sitting himself out pretty much the rest of the game because he knew that he couldn't keep his mouth shut.
That's good self-awareness. So, funny story about that, something similar. So, I was watching a soccer game over here, and I was one of the guys that hosts every once in a while with me, or once in a while, he's the AD over here at one of the schools. And we're all sitting there watching the game, and there's like 2 more games left before the playoffs start. And same similar rule here in the state, you get so many red cards, you got to sit
Yeah.
out a whole
Correct.
game.
Yeah.
So he basically walked up to him. He says, "I'm not supposed to tell you this, but you better get your red card before the next game because if you get it in the playoffs, you can't play." So he was like telling him, if you're going to get a red card, get it before the end of
Today.
before the today or in the next 2 games, or else you're not going to be, or if you get one during the playoffs, then you can't play.
Exactly.
That part I totally understand. Um, you know, other things in the movie that I was enjoying in was especially when you guys were talking with the girl side
Yeah.
and the part of practice that came up with the communication.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
well, because especially in sports that I've coached, football, basketball, baseball, softball, talking in the field is huge. And if you're silent on the field and you're not talking, and especially, like in basketball and stuff, and you're
Yeah.
not saying, "Hey, we got somebody cutting," you know. And so when it was the practice that
Yeah.
was not going well, and we all
Right.
have those. I've coached
That's what I
those
also love,
where
the reality of having a practice right before your playoff game and you're not having a good practice, right?
and the kids are being slappies, they're not focused or
Yes.
whatever,
Yes.
and then they're all lined up and they're going through stuff, and then coach here's like here's excuse me, hers going, "You see the girls over there? You guys are laughing at them, but they're over there communicating." He goes, "We need to
Yeah.
be doing that." And like,
Yeah.
bringing that up. And I was just like, yep, that's something else I've talked
Yeah.
about. So,
Yeah. Well, I think, Chad,
I
it's just
love,
interesting you
love
bring
that.
that point up. Yeah. In lacrosse, the goalie has a lot of say in the voice. They are kind of the quarterback of the defense. And the goalie who you saw in the movie, I coached as JV. And I think you saw in there, I said, "Hey, Kyle, do you like to run?" He goes, "No." I'm like, "Well, maybe you want to consider goalie," and he became our starting goalie in the movie. But what's interesting is he's such a shy kid. He's so to himself. For him to come out of his shell and say, "Top left, top right, down the middle, you got left, you're hot." All of these things that I saw him get so much confidence over 3 years of playing this game, and it was really fun to watch his maturation. But like you said, the girls seemed like they were communicating perfectly, and to try to
Right.
get us to do the same was a challenge. And it's
Yep.
fun to talk to you, Chad, because you see it from a coach's perspective, right? And other people see it from a mom's perspective. Some people see it from a dad's perspective. Some people see it from a community organizer's perspective, like what I did, and other people are like, "Well, I really like the storyline, just the whole idea of the story." And so it's really interesting to hear what people get out of it from themselves.
And I am like, when I watch this, I'm like, this is so different because it's everything that my show, at least, and a lot of other podcasts that do sports stuff that, especially other people I've interviewed that have our podcasts, there's a lot of stuff that we as coaches experience. So
Sure.
anybody who wants, and like, that's the whole purpose of my show, is kind of peel back and show this is what it's like to coach, and this is from our perspective. And this movie helps with that. It's like,
It really
and it
does.
doesn't matter. And this, I can tell anybody, it doesn't matter what sport it is. You watch this, if you're a coach,
Yeah.
you're gonna go, yep, yep, yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
And
And it's
I love
interesting.
it.
And I'll tell you, I watched the original version before we started doing a lot of the edits with our head coach, Gavin Hare. And besides us both tearing up and both enjoying parts of it, and it's hard to watch yourself coach. It really is hard. And
Right.
there was a scene in the movie where he's trying to tell Kenyon to be quiet, don't talk to the officials. And he went a little bit more than I would have been comfortable with as a coach, as a
Mhm.
parent, as a player. Now, we ended up cutting that out of the movie because we didn't need it, okay? But it really helped Gavin realize your words matter. You know, you're saying stuff
Right.
on the sideline and you're trying to convey, and your emotions take over, and
Hmm.
you tend to, you know, you have to remember these guys are still kids, right? And I love that part of the coaching part of it, and the idea. Now, you mentioned the girls, you know, this is fun for lacrosse. You know, girls lacrosse, to me, is probably the fastest growing women's sport next to flag football, right? And I
Okay.
say that from a point of view of exponential growth. There's a pro league that's going to happen. There's so many opportunities at the college level for lacrosse. It is really exciting to see the women taking over this sport. Now, you probably saw their sport is just a little different in that the outdoor version is no contact. So it's kind of like basketball, where you kind of muscle people sometimes, but you're not allowed to fully bull them over like you can in the
In men's.
boys game.
Yep.
Yeah. But the game is fast. And that's the part I love, is that they're so good with their stick that the ball moves really, really fast. And it's fun to watch. And I know the girls have a ton of fun playing. So that's the other thing. And I can't tell you this, Chad, but I've got a daughter as well. So I've got 4 kids. The twin
Right.
boys are in the movie. My
Yep.
daughter plays volleyball, and my littlest guy, he's 14 now. He's the lacrosse player that both my boys have beat up on since he was 4 or 5 years
That
old.
happens. Being the middle,
He's
being the little.
definitely talented. But trying to get my daughter to play lacrosse was, I have a picture of her with a lacrosse stick and almost a smile on her face. So her passion was not lacrosse. Her passion was volleyball.
That's funny. So yeah, and I just got a daughter, so I can tell you, having a girl, that's a whole different. I'm
Yes.
sure when you had your baby girl, and I was never fortunate to have a boy or anything like that, but I do
Yep.
remember my father-in-law going up to me. He's like, "I'm so glad you got a girl because it changes you." So whatever wildness or any kind of whatever, you kind of change when you have that. So
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
it's one of those things that happens. So I do want to talk a little bit about the whole document and the actual being on the film, because
Sure.
so here, you got to share this story. Cameras come in. So now you're going to have all these strangers rolling in with cameras, talking to you, talking to your kids, talking to people in the community, your coach and everything else. What was that like?
Yeah.
Is there, we talked about, you
Well,
talked
I
about
can
the one
tell you,
scenes, things that
yeah.
get cut out,
Yeah.
but kind of
Well, I
explain
think,
about that.
yeah. Well, as you can imagine, it's definitely invasive, right? But I think that with Brendan Hardy, the director, he's so good. He is truly professional when it comes to trying to get out sensitive topics in a way that is, you didn't know the guy. He created a way that you could talk to him even though it was on camera. So, we had lights, we had cameras, we had microphones, we had boom mics, we had all of the things that would make you start to believe like this is going to be the real deal. But the whole goal is to break those down to where you don't really notice them. Okay. And they did a phenomenal job. So Brendan, I've got to pitch the director on this. He's the biggest comment I get from people, and I'm sure you saw it, Chad. The editing was unbelievable. The camera work was unbelievable. The sound work was really on point, and it truly is a movie. This is not Brad Ledwith's, handheld camera and, put it in an editing software and, hey, check out my kids on lacrosse. This
Right.
is a movie. And Brendan has the resume. He's going to be doing the Winter Olympics here in a couple of weeks. He's doing the World Championships for NBC. He's done the World Poker Tour. He knows how to tell a story. But like you mentioned, the interesting thing was having the cameras and the other teams. So I think the other teams wanted to play a little better against us when they found
Right.
out that it's going to be a documentary.
Yep.
So they kind of came, what are all these cameras doing? Oh, well, I'm going to, whatever it might be. So it ended up being a little bit more. But coming into homes and, I think you and I, Chad, I'm assuming we're about the same age. These kids grew up in front of a camera. So it's a lot different for them being in front of a camera than it is for you and I. So I say that they grew up in front of cameras. It was easier for them. Obviously, it was a little bit of an inconvenience at times, but for the most part, I think that Brendan's crew and himself really did an amazing job at making people at ease.
That's great. Yeah, because from obviously, and I'll say it, I'm 50.
Yeah. I'm
Oh,
55, so we're
so
about the
there,
same
yeah,
age.
we're in the part of that same generation. So yeah, that camera thing, and it's a lot different, and getting film or being around that kind of stuff, it's obviously very different. But when you are doing something like a documentary, they are going to be coming into your house, and so
Yeah.
there's things that do get cut out. Was there anything that when you saw the final, was there anything that you talked about, one of the scenes that got taken out because you think it was
Yeah.
necessary?
Yeah.
Was there anything that you kind of wish was left in there? Was there one or two things? And
I've
I'm
done a
sure
lot of
because
interviews, Chad. That's the first one that I haven't really thought about it. I can't think of. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. I wish there was more of when the professionals came to coach. We talk about Trevor Baptiste has a scene, but Mikey Schlosser, he coached our team 5 or 6 times, and he's in the movie for about 7 seconds.
right.
He is amazing at getting these kids to hustle, and it was back to what you said. There's things I say in the movie that I saw Coach Gavin say. Well, when you bring in a professional, they say the same things Coach Gavin was saying, but the professional says it must be true now.
And that goes for anything.
Exactly.
And so, okay, I want to see if you've ever experienced this. So you coach your kids coming up, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and the
Yes.
younger girls. Okay, was there ever a moment? Because I've had this conversation, and my daughter, we've done an episode on this, and so is there ever been like a moment where something happens, they didn't quite hustle or whatever, and you're trying because you have to be a coach and not a dad, so you're trying to figure out that where's that line,
Yeah.
and so when you are being coached and you're talking to your kid and they're being kind of standoffish to you, and then kind of like they're like, screw you, dad, I'm not
Yeah.
gonna, I don't
Yeah.
want to listen to you right
Exactly.
now.
Yeah.
So having those moments, and then you have your assistant coach or
Assistant coach. Exactly.
so and they say something and they're like, yep, okay, I got you, and then you're standing there like, what? And then so,
Yes.
and I can tell you the story that gets, and my daughter shared it and stuff with me, and I was an assistant coach for her freshman year in softball, and so and we just had a JV and a varsity squad, so it was the JV team. So I'm over there and talking and explaining something like that, and she's a typical teenager, kind of gives you the
Yeah. Yeah.
teenager attitude that happens. And I do remember the head coach, and I didn't know about this till later. He like went and they pulled her off to the side and said, listen, he says, your dad's trying to coach you right now. He's trying to be a
Yeah.
coach, not a dad. So
Yeah.
you need to look at him as that.
Yeah.
So that kind of helps.
Yeah. No, I think if you've coached your kid, you've experienced what you just said multiple times.
Right.
Um, I love talking about coaching because I learned a lot during this whole process. One of the things that I talked to my wife about, who was a teacher, she taught in the school district for, I don't know, 10 something years, was, I think they call it differentiating in
Hmm.
school, which is where you've got one kid who's great and you got one kid who's just learning. And I felt like every practice I was doing that because it's a new game. It's a new sport. How do I catch? How do I throw? How do I, and we didn't even talk about this, Chad, because, your podcast is about coaching. And I'm going to tell you right now, Coach Rich in this movie, if there's an Oscar at the end of this movie when he gives that speech, he was the quiet coach the whole time through this whole movie. 7 years he was helping coach us. Anytime I asked Coach Rich, hey, can you help? He was there. And he was one of those players as a kid who was undersized, who wasn't as skilled. And I think those kids are the best coaches. And the reason why is they understand the struggle to get better, the want to get better, and maybe some things that physically they just can't compete. And I just love Coach Rich in the movie because he has some, moments that are really kind of funny to me. But his personality, if you met him, it takes a lot to ask him questions to get stuff out of him. He's just really a quiet introvert.
Okay.
So for him on that first couple of scenes against Bellarmine, and he's like, offsides, offsides, offsides. I'm like, that's not Coach Rich. He never says anything like that. And then at the end, his speech to the team is just so heartfelt. And, I can't say enough about Coach Rich, Coach Gary, if you look at the credits, it's just tons and tons of people who've put their volunteer hours into these kids.
Yeah. Going off that, the story that I love and that you guys were able to humanize, I guess, some of help bring that human aspect to things that struggles that happen with families. The adoption story,
Yeah.
the one that lost a sibling,
Yeah.
all that, that happens in communities, and
Yes.
communities rally around stuff like that. And it's important, smaller communities, bigger communities, whatever it is, wherever you're at, having stuff like that, it helps. And I like that that was brought out in the movie about those stories, those individual
Yeah.
stories, because the
And I think,
kid, is it Kenyon?
yeah,
Kenyon, that's
Kenyon.
the
Yeah.
one. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was like, I know that kid.
Yes.
Because I've been teaching for over 10 years. I know that kid. I know that
Yes.
when they brought up he was the one that did this and this, but then
Yeah.
he found
Yeah.
something like lacrosse, which was
Changed his life.
changed his life.
Yeah.
That was his saving grace right there.
Yeah.
And then, losing a sibling or losing a parent or
Yeah.
something like that in our
Yeah.
community. We have stuff like that. It happens too, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And, you feel for those kids when that happens. And then you're like, it was just really nice and refreshing to see something like that in the show.
Well, thank you for the kind words, Chad. And I will tell you as we wrap up, I mean, I don't know how long we've been
Yeah.
talking, but it feels like
Yeah.
almost an hour.
We'll just have like one more little segment and then we'll be done. But yeah.
Well, all I can tell you is the whole idea was to share with people what they're experiencing as well. And we're trying to tell a story. And I think in today's Hollywood world, they have to have some kind of salacious to sell it. There has to be some sort of, teenagers doing bad things. That's not this movie. We never wanted it to be that. We wanted it to be a feel-good story. I've said Hoosiers meets Hoops Dreams. It's a underdog story with that you feel for the kids, but it's a real true story. And I've said it many times in the Mighty Oaks. I'm sure you felt the same way, Chad. In that last 30 minutes, you're rooting for them. You're on the edge of the seat. You're hoping that this is going to go well. So I think that if people buy the movie on Amazon Prime and Apple TV and all the different streamers, I think that they'll feel the same way.
Yeah. And I'm not going to give away the ending, but
do it.
I'm not doing it. I mean, obviously, anybody wants to go to Max Preps or anything, they could, if they want to.
That's right. If they want to research it, they can do that.
Do your own research. I'm not going to tell you, but I watched it and I was just like, I like it. I like how this went, and it's amazing in this journey and how you go, still being involved in the program. Your kids eventually you're not going to have them anymore. The involvement that you have in other community members, because it looked like there was 2 or 3 of you guys that help build this foundation. What is it going to look? How do you see this happening in the next 10 years? How much involvement and all that's going to happen?
Boy, the $1 million question, Chad. I've talked to athletic directors and coaches, and they've found people like myself who've built something, and then they leave, and it's, where is everybody? That is the hardest thing to do, is to recreate what we had. And I don't think it's possible, but I do think that the program is in a good spot, and I think that it'll be around forever. 10 years from now, we'll still have people playing lacrosse at Live Oak High School, at Sobrato High School. We'll have a youth program here in Morgan Hill, and it will be a successful opportunity for people to play a sport that is, North America's oldest sport, and really try to get better and accomplish something that maybe they wouldn't had we not started the program.
It's amazing. You know what? I'm going to leave that right there for you. I do have one more final thought before we move. We got one segment we do, and it'll be you'll love it. But
okay,
this is, I want you to fill in the blank here. Okay.
All
If
right, fill in
one
the blank.
kid,
Here we go.
here we go. If one kid walks away from this experience knowing blank, then it's all worth it.
That life is about failure and how you react to it.
Perfect. I love
Love
it.
it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so next segment. This is our last segment. I always do this on all my
All right.
episodes. I do unusual mascots of the week. And so what I do, so how this works is I go around looking for unusual high school mascots that are just
Okay.
they're different. I mean, obviously the acorns for you
This
guys,
one right here,
yeah,
the
no,
angry
and
acorn.
I love it. Dude, that and the menacing acorn. And when I first looked at that, I was like, I honestly, what it took me to was Disney's Chicken Little because they were the acorns.
Huh?
And so
Yeah.
I'm just going, okay, so this will be perfect because you guys have such a unique mascot. We're going to stay in California,
All right.
Lincoln High School. You ever heard of Lincoln High School?
Well, are you talking about
Lincoln
in
High
San Diego?
This
The
one's in
Hive?
Northern California. No, this
Okay,
one's in Northern
Lincoln.
California. So this is
Lincoln,
actually there's
that's
a town.
go
Yeah,
ahead.
it's go ahead. Yeah. It's about 30 miles southwest of Sacramento.
Okay, I know where Lincoln is. I do not know what their mascot is.
Okay, so it's not too far from Rockland, Roseville,
Yes.
Auburn, all in that
Yes.
same area. Okay. We are going to talk about the zebras, the fighting zebras of Lincoln High. Okay. This
All
is
right.
how so here's the story that goes behind it. Okay. The fighting zebras, it was basically they kind of took a joke and made it their own. So in the 60s, Lincoln High athletics wore vertically striped uniforms as their school color. They were blue and gold. Opposing teams and fans started joking and they said they look like zebras. So they ran with it. And so in 1967, they embraced the nickname the Zebras, and then they added the word fighting to create a little bit edge to it.
Yeah,
Their
of
mascot,
course.
you look at it, it's this little angry zebra with the shirt with the L on it. Lincoln High is about 1,200 students. It's in Placer County.
Placer County, yep.
Placer County. So Placer County, it's looking at their median household income. You're looking at about 108,000, well above the national average. Healthcare, social services, education, retail, management type jobs around the area. So yeah, that is our mascot of the week, the Fighting Zebras.
I love the mascot of the week, and I'm going to put one. I'll just throw it out there for your next broadcast. You got to look up San Benito High School, Hollister High School, and
okay,
that will be your mascot of the week next week.
I will. I'll do that. I'll look it up. All right. I appreciate
Hollister
that, man.
or San Benito High. They've changed their name, so it's the Hollister, and then you fill in the blank.
Okay. All right. I can do that. Yeah, because up here in Idaho, we have the Maniacs up in Orofino. And the Maniacs is because there's a mental hospital ward in the town. And so they took the mascot, the Maniacs. So they ran with it. And so, yeah, look it up. You'll see, look at the mascot.
So
it is very unique.
You got me going into a black hole. I'll probably start looking at all these high school mascots. You're going to have to go
check it out. Yep. So again, I want to thank Brad for joining the show.
Thank you,
Chad. It's been awesome to have you on. I'd love to have you on any other time.
Appreciate it.
To everybody out there, I appreciate you. Go watch The Mighty Oaks. Check out the movie. It's Amazon. It's on Apple. Basically, any place where you can buy, any platform you can buy the movie.